summer of 1948, when 25-year-old Egon Hofner slowly walks up the stairs to his parents' house in Cologne, Germany. His neck is full of scars, and his body is covered in boils that have yet to heal. Egon takes a deep breath. He knows that he is one of the lucky ones. But in his eyes, you see that unique look, that quiet combination of gratitude and relief, exhaustion and sheer bewilderment that most prisoners of war display when it hasn't sunken in yet. That yes, they're home, and yes, they're finally safe. Mr. Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, esteemed audience, Egon was drafted right after high school, and he served in the German army as a radio operator until only 3 weeks before the end of World War II. He was captured by the Russian forces and became a prisoner of war. He and his buddies had to walk over 2,500 miles to the forced labor camp in Russia. They had to walk because those of them who were too exhausted to continue got shot at the spot. Egon was one of those who made it, and for the next 3 years, he watched many of his friends get killed or starve to death. And that would have been his fate too, if it hadn't been for that magical evening when a high-ranking Russian officer discovered that Egon had a secret. He beautifully played the accordion. "You must play music at the officer's casino," he ordered him. And then when he realized how frail Egon had gotten, he barked the life-changing order. "Somebody bring the music some food." Egon's life did not matter, but his music did. Egon takes another deep breath. Then he reaches out and rings the doorbell. He steps back as the door opens, and he looks in the face of a woman that he has never seen before. But she seems to know him, because her eyes open with joy as she turns around and calls into the house. "August! August, come here! August, come here! Egon ist zu Hause! Egon is home!" And behind her, August Hafner, my grandfather, shows up, with tears streaming down his face, as he takes my dad into his arms. "We never gave up hope. We never, never gave up hope." Eventually, he steps aside and introduces the woman. "This is Lori," he says. "We got married in the spring. Mother died in an air bomb attack just days after you were captured. They tried to save her and amputate her leg, but it was too late. She wrote you a last letter from the hospital. I'm so sorry." Like most survivors of such ordeals, my dad just wanted to put all this behind him. He was thinking of going to college, maybe become an engineer, but what did he know about life other than high school, war, and his time in the forced labor camp? My grandfather realized how desperately my dad needed structure and security, and so he scooped him up and he gave him a job in his company. And for the next 18 years, my dad and my grandfather worked together, and they built a very successful middle-class business, the foundation for the family that my dad once wanted to have. But still, it took him 15 years to fall in love. But when he met my mom, he proposed to her within 6 months. But his proposal did come under a condition. "You have to promise me that you will never, never, never ask me about what happened in Russia." My mom kept her promise. And that's how my sister, me, and my brother were raised. Always know, never ask. But as we got older, we felt that it was very difficult to work with our dad. He usually seemed quiet and friendly, But when he got triggered, he could explode in anger and rage. Now, how can you not get triggered with teenagers at home? I was so tired of the daily fighting at the dinner table. All I wanted to have was a connection to his heart. And the only time that my dad was happy was when he was sitting at the piano playing the old music. So one evening at dinner, I stepped up and I asked, "Dad, can I learn the piano like you?" My brother was choked in his throat, and my sister put her head down laughing. My lack of talent in music is well documented on family videos. But my dad got it. It wasn't about music. This time, it was about us. The music didn't matter, but my dad surely did. Mr. Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, this is just my family story. And it's neither unique nor is it rare. Most of us have family or friends who have served, and we so often forget how their service still impacts them today. Let's take a moment and acknowledge the veterans in our families and the veterans that are close to us. And let's start with the room. If you have ever served in the military or currently serving, please rise up so we can recognize you. Stand in the honor of a family member or friend who has served. Look around. This really impacts all of us, not just the veterans. But when we learn how to know without asking, how to acknowledge without comparing, and how to forgive without judging, our veterans have a chance to come home and start anew. Mr. Contest Chair.